Salutations and welcome, friends, to another episode of Amalfi Sports. I'm your host, Matthew DeSantis, and today we're breaking down the Grade 1 races that are going to be at the Travers Saturday in Saratoga. That's right. We're not breaking down one. We're not breaking down two. We're not breaking down three. I'm sounding like LeBron James now. We're breaking down six. That's right, six Grade 1 races on the card on what might be the best and biggest day of racing outside of the Breeders' Cup. Now, before we get started, just want to remind everyone one more time that in the coming weeks, we're going to be launching a podcast specifically for horse racing called The Win Place Show. You can get weekly previews like we've been doing, tracks across the country. Just finished up a preview of the Charlestown Classic and Charlestown Oaks for Friday. Also, next week, have a couple of previews already in the pipeline in terms of the Virginia Derby at Colonial Downs early next week. That's not going to change with moving to a podcast form. You can still get all of your stuff on YouTube as you always have. But this way you can listen on a podcast as well. If you're traveling around, if you're on a walk, on a run, you can listen, get some updates on horse racing. We're also going to have a lot of great interviews. That's the other thing I really have enjoyed doing is getting to talk to people across the horse racing industry. Just this past week, I interviewed Acacia Courtney from Naira and Fox Sports. And you can get that interview on Amalfi Media's YouTube channel or at amalfimedia.com. Additionally, stay up to date with all of the daily activity in horse racing and make sure to follow me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. Have a lot of great content and some more giveaways in the coming weeks, so you don't want to miss out on those. And like I said, aside from just the Travers preview, we also have the Virginia Derby preview coming up. We're also going to start shifting to some new tracks, some Santa Anita, some Keeneland, some exciting new tracks coming up. We've been doing a lot of Saratoga and Del Mar, but those seasons are coming to a close. We're going to keep plugging along to get you all the way through the Breeders' Cup and beyond. And the best place to get all of that coverage is, again, amalfimedia.com. So, as always, please sure to like and comment with your thoughts about how you think the races are going to break down on Saturday at Saratoga for the Travers, and share with your fellow horse racing enthusiasts on social media. Okay, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive in to what is a huge day at the track at Saratoga for the Travers. And let's start first with the Grade 1 Ballerina Handicap Race 7. And let's take a look at the field for the Ballerina Handicap. And this is a little bit of a smaller field. Several of the races today are going to be a little bit smaller, but the Ballerina is 7 furlongs on dirt for 3-year-olds and ups and for fillies and mares. And we have right from the get-go in the number 1 post position, Gamine, which is a monster of a horse, trained by Bob Baffert and jockeyed by John Velasquez. Then Lake Avenue, trained by Bill Mott and jockeyed by Junior Alvarado. In the 3-hole, we have Casual, trained by Steve Asmussen, jockeyed by Ricardo Santana Jr. In the 4-hole, we have Truth Hurts, trained by Chad Summers and jockeyed by Joel Rosario. In 5, you have Sconson, a horse that I think a lot of people are looking at potentially, trained by Greg Foley and jockeyed by Irad Ortiz Jr. And then Estilo Talentoso, trained by Juan Aragada, and jockeyed by Jose Ortiz. And then finally, Cece, trained by Michael McCarthy and jockeyed by Victor Espinoza. So that is the field for the Grade 1 Ballerina Handicap. And you might be asking yourself at this point, Matthew, previewing 6 races, this is going to go on forever. No, it's not. And the reason it's not is because of Gamine. When you have a horse this good, you don't really need to spend much time previewing the race. This is a horse I love. And I understand everybody's always trying to find value underneath. Everybody's trying to find the upset. I get it. I am too. You know, I try to pour over the past performances, the racing forms. I go back, watch a lot of the old races and videos to see, is there a chink in the armor? Are other horses, did they just have some bad trips and bad luck sometimes? So I try to find those sorts of trends to take a look at. But Gamine's just really good. and the only loss she's ever had was over a mile. But at this distance, she is dominant. And just dominant. And not just wins by a little, wins by a lot, wins by like 5, 6, 7, 8 lengths. Not just, oh, by a nose or a neck. I mean, the closest she's gotten was like a 1.5, 2 length win uh, over Wisconsin. So, I understand why people are kind of hitching their start to that a little bit to say, maybe there's something there. But uh, like I said, she is so good. And those, challengers such as Sconson and CC have not beaten her before. I don't think they're going to beat her this time out. She might not offer great value, but she's easily, I think, the best bet to win out of the 6 races. I mean, if you're parlaying wins, if you're playing a pick 3, a pick 5, I mean, she's as good of a bet to just solo up and just go, yep, that's who we're going with. Um, and so, 8 out of 9 wins, dominant speed numbers, dominant performances. I understand people don't like Bob Baffert. I get that. I've never been the biggest fan of his, and certainly all the controversy around Medina Spirit hasn't helped. But when he has a great horse, he has a great horse, and he's got a great horse. So what are we talking about? Like, why are we debating this as if this is going to be some sort of competitive contest? Because I don't think it is. The other thing that is there is I don't know who is going to push Gamine in this race. And what I mean by that is Gamine likes to get out early. There's not another horse in this field that's a front runner. So she's going to be able to go out, set her own pace. Nobody's going to challenge her for that early lead. See ya. I mean, this thing's going to be over probably before they break the starting gate, but it's certainly going to be over once they, are halfway down the back stretch. So I just really like this horse a lot. Now, you look at some of the other challengers, Sconson and CC certainly both have very, good top end speed numbers. I think, CC, I like a little bit more, has some of the better top end speed figures, actually has run 3 races better than Sconson's ever run. So I think CC's got that ability to go a little bit higher. Also, the times that CC has won, she can run a 121 7 furlong race, which is pretty damn fast. And so, you don't really see that in Sconson's resume. So I like CC a little bit more there. You go to the long shots if you're looking to pair up value, if you really think this is a 1-horse race and you're just trying to find value on the board. Astillo, Talentoso is an interesting one, has hit the board 8 for 8 at this distance, adds value to a lot of trifectas if you think CC and Gamine are a lot better. I also really trust Jose Ortiz, the jockey. I think this is, if you're going to try to find value in this race as a single ticket, then I think that's where you're going to have to find it. And everybody's going to look at Truth Hurts, who's going off at 50-1. It's a great name, too, of a horse. I actually would advocate throwing a $2 show bet on this horse. And I don't say that to make you waste $2, but rather she's had very strong 5 furlong workouts at Saratoga over the last 2 weeks. Seems to have taken to the dirt well. Not every horse does at Saratoga. So I wouldn't be shocked if she ran really gamely. And it's a worthy $2 show bet on a 50-1 shot. I think it's not just throwing $2 away. But at the end of the day, I think there's probably too much class for her to hit the board. So Ballerina Handicap, like I said, pretty straightforward. How do I see it? Well, folks, listen, I'm not an idiot. I try to find value, but at the same time, it's hard to ignore reality when it smacks you in the face. So I'm going 1, 7, 6, 5. I'm going Gamine to win, CC to place, Astillo Talentoso to show. I think that's where you get your value, and Sconson to finish 4th. So let's move on in that case to the Forego Stakes, the 8th race on the card, and let's take a look at the field for the Forego. And this is a race that is also 7 furlongs on dirt for 4-year-olds and up. This is an 8-horse field and a really fascinating one. A lot of these names are familiar based upon many of you who watched the Alfred G. Vanderbilt a few weeks ago, or about a month ago now, at Saratoga. So in the number 1 spot, you have Mischievous Alex, trained by Saffie Joseph Jr., jockeyed by Irad Ortiz Jr. Then you have Whitmore, trained by Ron Moquette, jockeyed by Joel Rosario. Then you have the winner of that Alfred G. Vanderbilt, Lexitonian, was a 26 to 1 long shot, trained by Jack Sisterton and jockeyed by Jose Lezcano. Then you have Mind Control, trained by Todd Pletcher, jockeyed by John Velasquez. Doubly Blessed, trained by Mike Maker and jockeyed by Luis Saez. In the 6-hole, you have Chance It, again trained by Saffie Joseph Jr., jockeyed by Tyler Gaffalione. Then you have Yawpin, trained by Steve Asmussen and jockeyed by Ricardo Santana Jr. And then finally, rounding out the field, you have Forenzi Fire, trained by Kelly Breen and jockeyed by Jose Ortiz. So let's talk a little bit about this race. And I think this is a more wide open race than the first one. I think if you're going to try to look at these grade 1 stakes races, you're going to try to find value in some of them. I think this is where you're going to go. I think this is a race. I think the next one, these are races where I think there might be some value here. But let's look at some of the favorites. I want to talk a little bit about Whitmore going off at 4 to 1. And I am not the biggest Whitmore fan. I like the horse. Again, it's like when I was talking about Nick Sco. I like the horse. I have nothing personal against the horse. Ran gamely at the Alfred G. Vanderbilt. But here's the reality. Whitmore is 0 for 2021. Hasn't been in the winner's circle this year. And now you're telling me we should expect Whitmore to be in the winner's circle. And no, it's not going to happen. Great story. I love the horse as an animal and as a competitor. But I just don't see it. Now, and here's part of the reason why. People love Whitmore. He's a fan favorite, and he's going to get bet down. And 4 to 1, good luck. That's going to be 3 to 1, 5 to 2. They're going to bet that horse down. And so I just don't love the odds. Do I like Whitmore to run well? Sure, I actually do. I think Whitmore will run competitively at this race, just as he did at the Alfred G. Vanderbilt. So including Whitmore on your exotics makes a lot of sense. To win, I don't like it. Lexitonian, 9 to 2. Listen, great story winning the Alfred G. Vanderbilt. This horse is erratic, to say the least. This horse goes from winning grade 1, but also sometimes just sits down in the stall and refuses to go out, sits down in the starting gate and refuses to go out. So you never know what you're going to get with Lexitonian. I have a feeling, using an example from last week, I have a feeling that this horse is a little bit more of the Maracuja type. And what do I mean by that? Maracuja beat Malafat about a month ago at the American Cup Classic. Ran against Malafat again last weekend. Didn't work out so well. I think Lexitonian ran a hell of a race last month at the Alfred G. Vanderbilt. I do not expect him to replicate that. Now you look at a horse like Yawpin. This is a fascinating horse to me. 5 to 2, betting line favorite actually. Stepping up in distance, has only ever run 6 furlongs. Now is going 7. Big speed, obviously. But here's the thing. Got absolutely smoked by this level of competition when he ran last time against it. At 5 to 2, I just don't like that value. So a lot of these favorites, I just don't love the value on. So where do I see the value? Well, I'm glad you asked. Mischievous Alex. Now, if you remember watching my preview, the Alfred G. Vanderbilt, I was lukewarm on Mischievous Alex. And it proved to be right because he didn't run a very strong race. But now it's 6 to 1. I really like that price. He also does well at this distance. This is a good distance for Mischievous Alex. Bad last outing, but has had nice workout numbers since then. Again, I think it's 6 to 1. This is a horse, the upper limits of what Mischievous Alex can do is better than anybody else in the field, Whitmore included. So if you give me Mischievous Alex on his best day, I'll take that every single time. And you're giving me 6 to 1, I'll take that. I like that bet a lot, actually. Let's look at Mind Control, 7 to 2. Another horse I like. Really like that Todd Pletcher has her going to the front now. They traded or changed trainers recently, and Pletcher has her doing, I think, a little bit of a different riding style, riding from the front. That makes a lot more sense, especially on dirt, early speed, kills at Saratoga. I mean, Luis Saez has been and I know Louis not running Mind Control. I know it's John Velasquez, but just as an aside, Louis Saez has been crushing the New York jockey colony by just being the most aggressive and just by taking early speed. If you're going to give him the pace, he'll take it. John Velasquez isn't a bad jockey. I like Johnny V a lot. I know some people get on him on Twitter, but I really like Johnny Velasquez. And, he's not dumb. He sees what Louis doing. And, Mind Control had a winning recipe last time out, really turned things around. And again, has top end speed, has some capacity to challenge, I think, Mischievous Alex even for that high end speed, and is running in a really effective manner. So I like Mind Control. Like I said, doesn't have a huge speed number yet, but I think the best of this horse is yet to come, to be honest. And there's a couple of other horses throughout the card that I feel that way about. The last one I'll mention is Frenzy Fire, who I like a lot. Again, Frenzy Fire has a pretty high ceiling. Can run a big number at 6-1, like Mischievous Alex. I like the value to hit the board. So, how do I see the Forgo Stakes breaking out? Well, I have it 1-4-8-2. That's right. I got Mischievous Alex to win at 6-1. I like Mind Control to place. I like Frenzy Fire to show. And I do like Whitmore to come in fourth. I think Whitmore is going to be very competitive. But that's just the way I have a feeling this is where you're going to see some value. I think this is the race where it's not going to be chalk. And I think you're going to see the potential for a little bit of an upset here. So that's the way I see the four go. Now let's move to the third of these 6 Grade 1 stakes races, the H. Allen Jerkins Memorial Stakes. And let's take a look at that field for that particular race. And this is a 6-horse field, the smallest field out of all the Grade 1 races at Saratoga on Saturday. Again, 7 furlongs on dirt for 3-year-olds. And we're going to start with the number 1 hole with Drain the Clock, trained by Saffie Joseph Jr., again, jockeyed by Irad Ortiz Jr. Then Jackie's Warrior, who's the betting line favorite, trained by Steve Asmussen, jockeyed by Joel Rosario. Then New Bomb, trained by Kelly Breen and jockeyed by Jose Ortiz. In the 4 hole, you have Following Sea, trained by Todd Pletcher and jockeyed by John Velasquez. In the number 5 hole, Judge and Jury, horse I actually like quite a bit. Danny Gargan is the trainer and Louis Saez is the jockey. Might be why I like him. And then finally, Life is Good, which is also trained by Todd Pletcher and jockeyed by Mike Smith. So let's talk a little bit about this field. Again, a very competitive field. I think New Bomb, as price would indicate, is probably the one horse you can toss. I think this is a race that gets decided on the backstretch. And I think this is a very, very close field. And I think this gets decided between Judge and Jury, Life is Good, and Warriors Charge. I think Mike Smith, Louis Saez, and Joel Rosario, whoever gets on the lead and whoever can get that early pace and get that early positioning, I really like their chances there. And so that's kind of how I see this race breaking down a little bit in terms of early speed. And I just think those 3 horses like to run from the front, and which one of those 3 horses is able to get out in the front and set the pace, going to be critical. But let's talk a little bit about each of these horses, as well as maybe a couple of value selections, excuse me. And so let's start with Life is Good. 8-5, second favorite, has run the biggest number in the field by far, 107. This is a horse that was going to be the presumptive Kentucky Derby favorite. This is a horse that beat Medina Spirit, the winner of the Kentucky Derby, by 8, count them 8 lengths. And it's not as if Medina Spirit ran a bad race. She was second, or he was second, I should say. Life is Good just was that dominant. I mean, when you look at Life is Good's career races, it is just route after route. He's only run 3 times because he got hurt. And then he changed barns. This was a Bob Baffert horse. When the suspensions all came down, this horse went from Baffert's barn over to Todd Pletcher's barn. He has not run since March. And so this was, like I said, the presumptive Kentucky Derby winner and favorite, overwhelming favorite. This was a horse that came out of the gate running in 91. I mean, this is a horse that is born to run fast. So this is the first time back, though. Pletcher's been quoted as saying the horse is extremely impressive in workouts. I like that. I trust Todd Pletcher a lot as a trainer. Obviously, he's a Hall of Fame trainer. Why shouldn't I trust him? This is a horse that, again, likes the lead. And I think Mike Smith should know what to do from that outside post position. I think that actually really helps him, having that outside post position in a 7-furlong race to be able to get on the lead. But this is a horse, if Life is Good is healthy, I don't see how you can think Warrior's Charge is the favorite. The only question you have is Life is Good may knock off some rust. Life is Good may be still hampered by an injury, may not be 100%, maybe 95. And because of that, you like other horses. But I'm sorry, that horse is too good to bet against, in my opinion. But let's go to a horse that I actually really do like and where you can, I think, again, find some value in this race, and that's Judge and Jury. I, again, really like this horse. 15-1, so you're getting great value. This is a big step up in competition, no doubt about it. But this horse fits a profile that you've heard me talk about before. I really like. It keeps getting better. This is a horse that keeps improving every time out. Speed keeps going up. Performance keeps going up. More importantly, Luis Saez is the jockey. Luis Saez is riding circles around the New York jockey colony, and he's taking horses to the winner's circle that have no business in some cases being in the winner's circle. And he is, like I said, he is riding circles around the Ortiz brothers right now, particularly Irad, who I think has really fallen off since last year. And so it's really interesting. But I think, again, breaking from that 5 position should have a nice, easy try to get out there on the early speed. So I like Judge and Jury quite a bit. That's where I think you're going to find value. Now, you look at something like Warrior's Charge. This is a horse that, again, I like a good horse, a perfectly good horse. Joel Rosario, though, sometimes gets a little too cute. I also don't see the inside rail yielding 3 straight winners. And I mean, that's my own bias coming in. But I just had Gamine and I just had Mischievous Alex coming out of the 1-hole to win both those 2 races. I don't see 3 straight races yielding a 1-hole victory. So, I mean, maybe that's not a very scientific way to look at things, but I just don't see that being successful. This is a horse that also, again, I just don't like the value at even odds, basically, because, you know, they'll throw in a clunker every once in a while. And yeah, there are those clunkers that are there, and I just don't love that he's got those in his resume. Now, cut back in distance should help. So I think that's a positive if you're looking for something on Warrior's Charge. But, you know, like I said, I'm a little worried about that spot. And I should correct myself. Jackie's Warrior is coming in from the second post position, not the first post position. But still, that inside is always a little, questionable, I think. So we'll see what Jackie's Warrior is able to do in that space. But like I said, that horse has a couple of clunkers there. The other horse that I want to talk about is Following Sea. This is a horse that ran in the Haskell, kind of got caught up in the Midnight Bourbon spill, was running 4th behind Hot Rod Charlie, Mandaloon, and Midnight Bourbon. When Midnight Bourbon went down, obviously, had to kind of pull up and avoid everything and was a non-factor in the race. But previously had been improving every time out, taking a step back in distance. And at 5-1, I like the value. I think there's good value there. So, I like this horse. I don't necessarily like this horse to win, but I like this horse quite a bit. I think, there's something to like. And I think that you'll see an effective bounce back. I think the Haskell is just a little too much, and it was a little too much distance, maybe a little too much class. I think a step back in distance and class might be exactly what you need. So how do I see the Allen Jerkins Memorial Stakes playing out? Well, I have it 6, 5, 2, 4. That's right. I got Life is Good to win. Just too good. I'm sorry. Judge and jury, that's where you're going to get your value to place. I like Jackie's Warrior to show, and then I like Following C to come in fourth. So let's move to the 10th race, the Personal Ensign Stakes. Let's take a look at that field, which is not 7 furlongs for a change because all the others have been. And so let's take a look at the field for the Personal Ensign Stakes. Mile and an eighth on dirt for 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. This is a 9-horse field. Coming in at number 1, we have Dunbar Road, trained by Chad Brown, jockeyed by Flavian Pratt. Then As Time Goes By, trained by Bob Baffert, jockeyed by Mike Smith. Bonnie South, trained by Brad Cox, jockeyed by Manny Franco. Then you have the always popular Swiss Skydiver, trained by Ken McPeak and jockeyed by Jose Ortiz. At number 5, you have Royal Flag, trained by Chad Brown, jockeyed by Joel Rosario. And then you have the horse of horses, at least right now, I think, Latruska, trained by Fausto Gutierrez and jockeyed by Irad Ortiz Jr. And in number 7, you have Miss Marissa, trained by James Ryerson and jockeyed by Daniel Centeno. Then you have an intriguing horse I actually like quite a bit. Number 8, Harvey's Little Goyle, trained by Bill Mott, jockeyed by Luis Saez. And then finally, Graceful Princess, trained by Todd Pletcher and jockeyed by John Velasquez. So the Personal Ensign Stakes. Again, this is where I can save some time on the preview. Latruska. That's it. That's the list. That's the list of horses that's going to win this race. You go, oh, who could win this race? Latruska. Full stop. End of sentence. I've had 2 guests on my interview show, Jessica Paquette from Colonial Downs and Josh Rodriguez from On the Wrong Lead. I asked both of them, who's the best active racehorse in the country right now? Open-ended question. They could have picked any horse. Both of them, without any prompting from me and without much hesitation, had one response: Latruska. If you're the best racehorse in the country, and I believe she is, then what are we talking about here? And here's the kicker. You're giving me 6-5. I would be running over people to get to the betting window at 6-5. Why this horse is not 3-5, 2-5, I am baffled by. I love Latruska. Just the fleur-de-lis performance was absolutely stunning. This is just such a good horse. It just has so much class. And that I love this horse. So Latruska, that's my pick to win. Now, let's at least talk about some of the other horses in the race. I don't want to be any disrespectful. Swiss Skydiver, 7-2. I like Swiss Skydiver. She's a game horse. She's a game filly. The performance at last year's Preakness, phenomenal. Swiss Skydiver, though, has a Whitmore issue. Very popular, is going to get bet down, hasn't recaptured 2020 form. Also has never won at this distance. So, yeah, I mean, give me all those variables. I just don't love Swiss Skydiver at 7-2. And Swiss Army is a thing. Hashtag Swiss Army on Twitter is definitely a thing. People love Swiss Skydiver. Shout out to Amanda, who I know listens to this and is a huge Swiss Skydiver fan. No disrespect, wonderful horse, but I just don't see her matching up against Latruska. Now, let's talk about a horse I do actually like quite a bit, and where I think there's a little bit of value is Harvey's Little Goyle. Ran a very strong 4th at the Diana. People forget that, but really was gaining ground at the Diana towards the end. Obviously didn't catch Alfica and Summer Romance, who are the 1-2 horses coming from overseas, but still ran a really strong race. You get Luis Saez on board, who, as I mentioned, knows what he's doing in these races, knows what he's doing at Saratoga. It could also run a really big number, and I think can hit the board quite effectively. Can't necessarily match Latruska, but I like this horse to add value to your tickets. If you like me believe in Latruska, then you're looking for value in other places. And I think exotic bets with Harvey's Little Goyle, I like a lot. Let's talk about As Time Goes By at 6-1. This is a horse that's going to challenge Latruska for early speed. Workouts have been very strong. I think my question is, can she dig in and go all the way with Latruska? And I just don't see that. Bob Baffert, who we talked about earlier, I think he's going to win with Gamine, obviously, earlier in the day, but previously has only had 2 horses run at Saratoga this season. Has not won either of those. So it's not as if when Bob brings a horse in, it's not the Aidan O'Brien effect, essentially, that when an outsider comes in with a horse, you kind of have to stand up and take notice and go, oh, this is really serious. Um, Gamin's an excellent horse, but I think outside of that, you don't have to necessarily hold Baffert in reverence for all of his entries here. So I question as time goes by in terms of finishing up the race. And then there's Graceful Princess. And this is a horse that I think some people are going to really like um, as a long shot play. Great effort at the Molly Pitcher. That was a grade 3 race, but still great effort there. Has the pedigree to suggest distance will not be an issue. Has the right trainer for it too, and Todd Pletcher. Can she duplicate her best effort and step up in competition? I think those are unanswered questions. And I don't necessarily like the answer to those questions. In my mind, I'm answering that, and I don't like the answer to those questions. I think she will run a game race, but I don't see her challenging the top 3 or 4 in this particular field. So how do I see the personal ensign breaking out? 6, 8, 4, 2. I got it. Latrusco to win. Harvey's Little Goyle to place. That's where you're going to get your value. Swiss Skydiver to show. See Swiss Army. I don't hate the horse. And then finally in the Superfecta, the number 2 as time goes by. So let's move to the 5th of the 6th graded 1 stakes races, and that is the Sword Dancer Stakes. Let's take a look at that field. And this is the longest of the grade 1 stakes races on Saturday, a mile and a half on turf for 4-year-olds and up, a 7-horse field. Let's start off with a French horse, Trabhouvan, trained by Chad Brown and jockeyed by Flavian Pratt. Then Gufo, trained by Christophe Clement and jockeyed by Joel Rosario. Then Rock Emperor, trained by, again, Chad Brown and jockeyed by Irad Ortiz Jr. Channel Maker, coming in at the 4 slot, trained by Bill Mott and jockeyed by Manny Franco. Then a horse, Moretti, trained by Todd Pletcher and jockeyed by Jose Ortiz. And they have a very intriguing Aidan O'Brien horse, Japan, coming overseas for the first time, jockeyed by Ryan Moore. That O'Brien and Moore connection is one that is legendary over in Europe. And then finally, Cross Border, trained by Mike Maker and jockeyed by Louis Saez. And so how do I see this race playing out? Well, I'll be honest. This is a race that I think has the murkiest results. And it's the most challenging for me to see where this race is going to play out. I definitely have my favorites, but to me, this is an interesting race. I think the easy answer is to say, hey, Chad Brown on turf. Yes, please. I'll take Trabhouvan. And anybody who watched the UN Stakes performance at Monmouth, that was one of the best performances I've seen on turf this year from a horse. I mean, Trabhouvan went to the lead, pulled away from the field early, and I thought Flavian had misjudged the horse. No, I had misjudged the horse because Trabhouvan just kept pulling away and was never challenged. And that was a pretty decent field. That was a grade 1 race. And so, additionally, Flavian Pratt, when he comes back to New York, has had a lot of success, has won 3 out of the 8 mounts that he's had to this point in New York. Now, that said, I think in this race, Trabhouvan is going to be pushed for early speed a little bit more aggressively than he was in the UN Stakes. I think you look at Moretti. I think you also look at Channel Maker. Both of those horses are going to push for early speed. What Flavian Pratt does, how Trabhouvan responds, that could end up really making a lot of determination, because if they wear themselves out early, now it allows those deep closers into the field. And so let's talk about some of the other horses in the field. And let's start with Japan. The Aidan O'Brien entry has to be taken seriously. That said, has never run on firm turf. Now, I don't know the turf condition for Saturday at Saratoga. It's going to potentially rain at Saratoga on Saturday. That said, it's not rained recently at Saratoga. And so it rained all last week and finally kind of started to clear out at the end of last weekend. This week has been dry, so I'm thinking that turf is going to be closer to firm than good. And again, this is a horse coming from overseas that's never run on anything other than good at best and typically soft turf. So interesting to see how that horse will take to it. Got beaten by Wonderful Tonight and Broom, who are both good horses, who ran at the King George VI, Queen Elizabeth Stakes not that long ago. I like both those horses. I handicapped both of them for that race. So no harm in losing to both of them, but neither are overwhelming horses. Lost to both of them earlier this year. Generally, there's value here. At 9-2, I'd be stunned if that number went down because Americans typically don't like betting EU horses. That's just one of those issues that you see. This is also the first time in the United States. So sometimes that can be an issue, as was the case with Trabouvan. If you look at Trabouvan, the first time he came over from Europe, ran probably his worst race to date. Struggled. A lot of horses do. It's rare for a horse to come over and just hit the ground running right away. And so for Japan, there's just some question marks there, but I think you're going to get good value. Maybe it's my American bias. I just don't know. Aidan O'Brien entries have been very, very good this year, and Japan is a very impressive horse. I just taking a little bit of a leap of faith here because it's not as if Japan's been just racking up win after win after win overseas. There's a horse that has a mixed record overseas and is now coming over to the United States. And I'd like to think Trabouvan's a pretty good horse. And so this is a pretty strong field. This is not just, a walkover type of a race. So let's talk about one of those other horses, Gufo. Won at 1.5 miles just last time out. However, has never beaten Trabouvan. Always finishes, even if Trabouvan doesn't win, finishes right behind Trabouvan. So it's a horse that just has never gotten over that hump, it seems like, in terms of beating Trabouvan. Likely is hoping for an early speed duel so it can be a deep closer and can run into the lead. I do trust Christophe Clement quite a bit as a really great trainer, but I do wonder if Gufo is going to be able to run into things there. Channel Maker, this is a horse that I think you might see a little bit of value at 8-1. I feel like we probably went the other way too far on Channel Maker after a really disappointing Bowling Green. At its best, Channel Maker does have the top end speed to win this race. Question is whether or not he's going to deliver another clunker like he did last time out. I actually think, again, at 8-1, we might have gone too far the other direction. It's still a very good horse, and I think you could find some value there on the back end of exotics. And then finally, Cross Border. This is the horse that won the Bowling Green very impressively. I thought that was, outside of Trabouvan, that was probably one of the more impressive turf performances I've seen this year. It's a horse that keeps getting better, too. And at 4-1, I like those odds. I will take that bet. Thank you very much. So how do I see this playing out? I'm going to go upset. I'm going to go Cross Border to win. I really like this horse. And I think this horse is only going to get better. So I like Cross Border to win. I think there's going to be a little bit of a speed duel at the beginning. And so I like Cross Border there. So I have it 7, 1, 2, 4. I got Cross Border to win, Trabouvan to place, Gufo to show, and I got Channel Maker to finish 4th. Well, let's move to the namesake of the weekend, the Travers Stakes, Grade 1, 1.25 miles. Let's take a look at this field, and what a field it is. The Travers Stakes, like I said, 1.25 miles on dirt for 3-year-olds. Let's run them down. Number 1 hole, Midnight Bourbon, trained by Steve Asmussen, jockeyed by Ricardo Santana Jr. At number 2, you got the horse of horses right now, essential quality for that 3-year-old division, trained by Brad Cox and jockeyed by Luis Saez. You have a horse that challenged him last time at the Jim Dandy, Keep Me in Mind, trained by Robertino Diodoro and jockeyed by Joel Rosario. You have an improving horse, Dynamic One, trained by Todd Pletcher and jockeyed by Irad Ortiz Jr. And then you got Miles D, a horse that's going to give you some odds with Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt. And Masca Parade, trained by Albert Stahl Jr. and jockeyed by Miguel Mena. And then finally, coming out at 15-1, King Fury, trained by Ken McPeat and jockeyed by Jose Ortiz. So let's dive into this field. Oh, and I know the conversation on horse racing Twitter and among horse racing circles in general is that Essential Quality is due for an upset. Essential Quality is due to get beat. Here's what I'll say about Essential Quality. Essential Quality has 6 graded stakes victories. The rest of the field has 4 combined. We forget how good Essential Quality is. And then The analogy that I use, and I talked to my dad about this because my dad and I both are also really big boxing fans. I should have been born in the 1950s when horse racing and boxing were like what everybody did. But I thought of the former heavyweight champion Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes is not remembered as a great heavyweight champion because he didn't have anybody to really fight. There weren't other great heavyweights. And so Larry Holmes racked up this incredible record, was heavyweight champion for years and years. But nobody ever really gave Larry Holmes a lot of respect because of that. I feel like Essential Quality is the Larry Holmes of this year's 3-year-old class. This is not a great 3-year-old class. Anyone who I've talked to about this has said that. We've seen better. We'll probably see actually a better 3-year-old class next year. But you know what Essential Quality does? Just goes out and wins. Just goes out and keeps winning. Has lost one race. The Kentucky Derby came in a game fourth, but lost one race. You know, at 4-5, listen, he'll probably get bet down. And I think that's where people have a problem because they'll go, this horse is not a, I think it'll probably get bet down to 3-5, maybe even 2-5. This horse is not that good. And you're right. This horse is not Secretariat. This horse is not American Pharaoh. This horse is not even Justified. Probably closer to like California Chrome or something along those lines. Okay. So this is not a horse that may go down in the pantheon of great thoroughbreds. But, he just keeps winning. And it's not his fault that the competition hasn't been stellar. And everybody keeps talking about, oh, this is the time that Keep Me in Mind's going to win. Oh, this is the time so-and-so is going to win. What you keep telling me, when is that time? When is that going to happen? You tell me. All right. I get you try to find value. I understand that. I totally get that. You try to find value in these races, and it's not fun just to pick chalk and go pick the winner. Okay. But, it's also hard to pick against history, and it's hard to pick against consistency. Because here's the thing. I think Essential Quality had one of the worst efforts in his career at the Jim Dandy. That was one of the worst efforts I've ever seen, was super wide the entire time, ran so much more ground than all of the other horses. And you could tell something was even off because coming around the second turn, the camera angle was looking right down the back stretch. And you could see that when he got moved in that second turn, Luis Saez was jerking his head all over the place because you could tell Essential Quality wanted to keep going wide. And so that was not a great effort. You know what he did? Won. Won. And so if you're telling me a horse that's giving you a poor effort wins, and some of these other horses in that same race had a perfect trip and couldn't win, I don't think you're going to have another bad outing from Essential Quality. But let's talk about a couple of those other horses. Midnight Bourbon, 9-2. Man, I love this horse. Really love this horse in the Preakness. I thought Irad gave him a good ride. Ron Bauer was just the better horse. Really liked him in the Haskell too. And that was, I hated seeing that spill. So happy that the horse is okay. I do worry about coming off that spill. And I may be wrong, but this is another horse. I feel like we've not seen the best from this horse yet. I feel like this horse has another gear and has another level. I really like Midnight Bourbon. I know other people are looking in other places for that upset over Essential Quality. I'd be looking at Midnight Bourbon, to be honest. Keep Me in Mind, 6-1 shot. Second at the Jim Dandy. Ran a phenomenal Jim Dandy. Got a great trip at the Jim Dandy. Was its best effort at the Jim Dandy. Still second best. Still second best. Now you're asking me, it's going to be what, a better trip this time? Hard to be a better trip. Or better effort? Okay. I mean, how many more races are we going to wait until we see the best effort from this horse? I think we've seen Midnight Bourbon's had some mitigating circumstances in a lot of races, and that's why I think we've not seen his best yet. Keep Me in Mind's had the red carpet rolled out a few times and has run very well. And it's not a slight against Keep Me in Mind, who I think is a very good horse. I just don't think that best effort's going to be there again. Dynamic One, 6-1. I'll be honest, I'm out on this horse. People like Dynamic One quite a bit. What I'll say is, lost to Bourbonic in the Wood Memorial. And what I will say about that Wood Memorial is absolutely nobody has done anything of great consequence from that race. None of the horses in that Wood Memorial have gone on to really distinguish themselves. Now, Dynamic One won last time out and ran a big race. but the workouts haven't blown me out of the water, and distance could be an issue. So again, I don't love Dynamic One at a mile and a quarter. Miles D, on the other hand, I like this profile. People who know me know I like this profile. It's a lightly raced horse that keeps going up in speed figures. I don't think we've seen the best from this horse yet. I love the value on this horse. So this is a horse I actually do like in your exotic bets quite a bit. So how do I see the Travers Stakes playing out? Listen, I got it 2, 1, 5, 4. I got Essential Quality to win. I got Midnight Bourbon to place. I got Miles D to show. I got Dynamic One finishing fourth. That's where I see this race. And I'll be honest, full disclosure, when I was handicapping this before I was, as I was writing my notes before I was recording this, for a split second, I actually wrote Midnight Bourbon to win. I almost did it. And I looked back over that, racing form. I went back and watched that performance of Essential Quality at the Belmont Stakes. And I said, no, it's Essential Quality all the way. It's not his fault that this is not the greatest 3-year-old group. And I don't think Essential Quality is this unbeatable horse. I think he's absolutely beatable. I just don't think he's beatable by the horses in this field and the horses necessarily in his cohort. So that's how I see the Travers Stakes playing out. Well, listen, folks, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I hope you enjoyed this Travers preview. And remember to check out my blog for my picks for all of the races on Saturday's card, as well as my picks and previews for the races at Charlestown and Colonial Downs. And the only place to get those is on amalfimedia.com. Finally, just a reminder to subscribe to Amalfi Media on YouTube. Be on the lookout for the launch of the Win Play Show podcast. Listen, even if you don't love handicapping, even if you don't follow every single one of these races, it's going to be a great podcast. Lots of wonderful interview subjects and even some non-handicapping episodes where I just update you about some of the news in horse racing. You can also follow me at Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace and check out amalfimedia.com for all the horse racing content you need to get through the Breeders' Cup and beyond. Until next time, I'm Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a wonderful and prosperous day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.